Hey everybody, what's going on? So in this section, what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about how you can use outbound LinkedIn strategies. And this section is all about how you can reach out to people on LinkedIn, send them a message, and convince them to take a meeting with you. Now, some of the foundations that you already learned in the outbound cold email lead generation strategies that we talked about before are going to apply to LinkedIn outbound as well, right? Because the philosophy of it is exactly the same, where you're essentially reaching out to somebody that you don't necessarily know and you're trying to convince them to take a meeting with you to see if it makes sense to work together or not. So it's pretty much the same strategies, same philosophy. However, the mediums are going to be different because there are different nuances when it comes to sending a cold email to someone versus sending them a message on LinkedIn. Although the foundations, and you're going to see, are pretty much the same, there are slight nuances and you do have to make some changes in order to convert better when it comes to using LinkedIn. So you can't necessarily use the exact same strategies, but you can use the same philosophies. And because there's similar philosophies, some of the templates are also going to directly translate 90% of the way. So I'm going to show you all that in this section, so do not worry. Like I was saying, some of the templates are going to be very similar, but there are going to be a lot of new templates as well that are specifically unique to LinkedIn. And so you're going to see the differences and similarities between the two. Now, one thing I'll note is that when it comes to sending cold emails, there's a lot of good ways to actually just automate the entire process and send thousands of emails. Now, with LinkedIn, it's a little more tricky, right? Because there are similar softwares available where you can connect it to LinkedIn and have that software collect people's information and send out automated messages. However, the challenge is that there aren't any large companies who you can 100% trust to do it for you. And if you do a quick Google search, for example, if you type in LinkedIn, automation tools, the companies that come up are a little sketchy and there are no reviews out there about them. And there are people that use them, but it's not super credible. And the reason is because I believe that LinkedIn, they change their algorithm and they change what you can and can't do on LinkedIn all the time. So for example, if you're mass connecting with people on LinkedIn, LinkedIn might flag your account and say, hey, this guy is probably using a bot to add all these people and send all these messages too quickly. And then so that might be a strike against your account. And then if you do it too much, your account may get banned. So that's why I wouldn't necessarily recommend automating your entire LinkedIn process, because LinkedIn changes so much that you have to constantly look for new software and you find new strategies, and it's not really predictable. And if things keep changing, it's difficult for you to scale. So that's why I would lean on using cold email to scale, because nobody controls how many emails you can send, right? Cold emails are a lot more scalable. However, LinkedIn does have a lot of value in that I would use LinkedIn more for personal message when you're literally sending one-on-one messages to somebody and you really want to get a meeting with them. And I would use cold emails as a way to, do this on a scalable way and send thousands of emails. But LinkedIn, that's when you're getting into, sending dozens or hundreds of messages. And it's a lot more personal and it's specifically for that individual. So that's pretty much how it would separate it. Cold email is for mass emailing. LinkedIn messages I would use as, targeted messages for specific people that maybe didn't respond to your cold email and you want to reach out to them in a different way. That's where I would recommend LinkedIn. Now, again, there are places where you can automate this, but again, there are challenges when it comes to that. So you can do your own research and find the best tools for you. But for this course, I'm going to recommend you actually do it the manual way when it comes to using LinkedIn for outbound. Okay, so now that we got that covered, the goal of LinkedIn Outbound is actually just to schedule a meeting with prospects, right? That's the only thing you want to do when it comes to LinkedIn. And this is important because LinkedIn is a social media platform. It's easy to get distracted, but just know your only goal here is to get a meeting with prospects, and that is it. And the organizational map is going to be exactly the same. You only want to reach to the director level, vice president, and the C-suites, and you do not want to message any, managers or individual contributors, because again, they don't have the decision-making power to actually buy whatever it is that you're selling. So only go for the people who have authority and decision-making power at the organization that you want to reach out to. And the prospecting schedule, essentially what I would do is the same with the email. I would only message people on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, because not a lot of people are checking their LinkedIn on Saturday and Sunday because it's not the working hours. And of course, if you're sending the messages from, let's say, 6 a.m. to 7 a.m., people are more likely to respond because that's when they're checking their phone. However, the thing is, when it comes to LinkedIn, because you're not automating these messages to send at a specific time like you can on cold email, then you can pretty much just send it to any time throughout the day, because it's pretty unlikely that you would just wake up at 6 a.m. and send all your messages and go back to sleep or start your work really early. And not a lot of people want to do that. But if you want to do that to increase conversion rates, that's totally fine. But if you just want to send it whenever you have time during the day, that's totally fine too. So it's really up to you and whether or not you want that incremental gain in people opening your LinkedIn message by sending at 6 to 7 a.m. So completely up to you, but again, you can send it at any time. I've sent at any time, and that also works fine. So it's going to work for you as well. So if you're using a free LinkedIn account, right, and we're going to assume that you're not using Sales Navigator because it does cost money, here's the process that you're going to go through. The first step when it comes to LinkedIn is you got to send a connection request, right? So basically you find the person and you basically add them, similar to like adding them as a friend on LinkedIn. And within that, what's going to happen is you can actually just send a default message, or you can actually write a message like, hey, John, I thought it would be great to connect with you because I saw you were in the cryptocurrency space and so am I, blah, 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 right? In the first message, you don't have to make any asks. You could just give them a reason for why you're connecting. And then whenever they accept your request, not everybody will, but usually a high percentage will accept your connection request. Then what you're going to do is you're going to send them the first message, right? So that's when you enter some kind of template in how you're offering value to them and trying to convince them to take a meeting with you. If they don't respond, wait 3 to 7 days, do follow up 1, and then it's same with the email, right? If they don't respond with that, follow up again in 3 to 7 days. If they don't respond to that, follow up again in 3 to 7 days. So you can actually just track this all on an Excel sheet and just keep track of when you're following up with people, what day you're following up, and how many times you're following up with them. And then it's going to be really easy to do on an Excel sheet. Pretty much this mimics the cold email strategy, except there's an extra step where you have to send a connection request. Another way to do it is that when you're sending the connection request, instead of just sending a default message that says, hey, John, thought it would be great to connect with you, you can actually just put your whole pitch within that first message request. So what's going to happen is someone's going to accept your connection request, and then once they accept it, it's going to automatically send them a message, and within that message you could pretty much write your whole pitch there, and so that also works. And then so that actually just reduces this by 1 step, which is good. And from there, if they don't respond, again, 3 to 7 days, follow up, and then you just repeat the process and only follow up with them 3 times. And then if they don't respond, then you got to let it go, because if they're not interested within the 3 follow-ups, then they're probably not going to buy your product or service or are interested in taking a meeting with you. Now, you could message them again, but the problem is that they're going to see all your follow-ups when you do message them again. So you might have to go back and delete what you sent them and then send another message to them maybe 3 to 6 months down the line. So this strategy is pretty good because it does reduce, as you can see here, it reduces the step of connection request and then sending the initial message. Instead, you could combine them and do it all in one go and then do it like this. So this one works really well too. The only challenge is that if people are seeing that you're sending a long pitch in the beginning, it might actually reduce your conversion rates, but you got to see what works best for you, right? There's no necessarily best way to do it. But I believe that both strategies can get good conversions. However, you just got to do what works best for your business, because every business is unique, and then try which one works best, whether sending a connection request, then sending your pitch, or sending the connection request with your pitch is going to work for you. And the last thing I'll say is that when you are sending connection requests, you want to make sure that you send 99 or less connection requests per day, because if you send more than that, LinkedIn's going to flag you. And this changes all the time, right? So at the time of this recording, this is what it is. But in the future, you might find that this number is limited. So that's why I don't recommend using automation tools for LinkedIn, because if they do change this, right? Let's say they change it to, 20 connection requests per day, then that means you can only send 20 messages per day. And that's not very scalable, right? So that's why I don't recommend using LinkedIn in an automated way. Use automations for cold email, and for LinkedIn, make sure just make it more personal and actually write out what you're saying to the person one-on-one. So as of now, just send less than 99 connection requests per day. If you find that LinkedIn is flagging you for whatever reason, maybe you're doing it too fast, then you just got to lower this number and send less per day. So that's pretty much it. I can give you this number now, but again, it's always going to change in the future depending on what LinkedIn does with their platform. And that's just something that you have to live with when you rely on LinkedIn for outbound lead generation. So with that said, those are all the fundamentals when it comes to using LinkedIn as an outbound strategy. And then from here on out, we're going to show you all the different templates and go into LinkedIn and show you how to exactly do this. I just want to show you the foundations first. And then from there, we're going to move on to the next section where you're going to be able to execute on these strategies.